The galactic high chamber hummed with the low-frequency vibrations of 100 different species conversing in their native tongues. The floating amphitheater orbited Zenthar, Fae, its curved walls lined with glowing holographic sigils representing the dominant powers of the Federation. At the far edge of the chamber, dwarfed by the towering emblems of the Zephyrian Dominion and the Vorak technocracy, a single dim blue sigil pulsed weakly, the mark of humanity. Admiral Elias Vance adjusted his dress uniform's collar as he stepped onto the speaking platform. The anti-grav field beneath his boots buzzed faintly, adjusting to his weight. Around him, delegates from a dozen star-faring civilizations lounged in their adaptive thrones, many of them barely glancing his way. A Zephyrian aide sniffed dismissively as Vance passed, her bioluminescent scales rippling with disinterest. High Prelate Vexis loomed at the center of the chamber, his elongated frame draped in flowing silver robes that shimmered like liquid mercury. His 4 eyes, 2 large, forward-facing orbs, and 2 smaller, recessed ones, tracked Vance with barely concealed amusement. "Ah, the human representative," Vexis said, his voice a smooth, condescending purr. "How quaint of you to join us." Vance ignored the jab. Ed spent the last 3 years enduring this kind of reception. "Prelate," he said evenly, "I've reviewed the proposal to revoke humanity's shipbuilding rights under Federation law. I'm here to formally protest." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. Chancellor Droth, a Vorak technocrat with a segmented exoskeleton, polished to a mirror sheen, leaned forward. His mandibles clicked in amusement. "Protest, Admiral. Your species still welds hulls from refined ore. You use kinetic projectiles. Your vessels are relics." Vance clenched his jaw but kept his voice steady. "Our ships have defended Earth for 2 centuries. They're more than capable. Against pirates and rogue colonies, perhaps," Vexis said, waving a long-fingered hand. "But the Federation requires standards. Your pathetic little cruisers wouldn't last 10 seconds against a Zephyrian battle group." Murmurs of agreement echoed around the chamber. A Cerelian delegate, their translucent skin pulsing with faint internal light, floated closer. "Admiral Vance, be reasonable. The Council isn't stripping your rights out of malice. It's for your own protection your technology is." They hesitated, searching for a diplomatic term. "Obsolete." Droth finished for them. Vance felt the weight of every dismissive stare in the room. He tapped his wrist, terminal, projecting a holographic schematic above the platform. "This is the USN Defiance, our newest heavy cruiser. It's equipped with—" Vexis interrupted with a derisive snort. "Metal plating, chemical propulsion, primitive railguns. Admiral, do you know what my flagship's hull is made of?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Phase-forged neutronium. Your pathetic slugs would vaporize on impact." The chamber erupted in laughter again. Vance let it die down before speaking. "Technology isn't just about materials. It's about how you use it." Droth's mandibles twitched. "Spare us the philosophical platitudes. The vote is already decided." He raised a clawed hand, and the central holographic display flickered to life. The tally appeared instantly. Fae in favor, Fae against, Fae abstentions. Vance didn't need to check the names to know Earth and its lone ally, the reclusive Tarkassi, had been the only dissenters. Vexis smiled, revealing rows of needle, like teeth. "The Galactic Federation has spoken. Effective immediately, human shipyards will cease production of military vessels. Existing ships will be permitted to operate under Federation oversight, but no new constructions." He leaned forward, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Don't look so grim, Admiral. Perhaps your people can focus on something more suited to your capabilities. Agriculture, maybe?" More laughter. Vance deactivated his hologram with a sharp gesture. "This is a mistake." "No," Vexis said, his tone final. "The mistake was ever letting your kind believe you belonged among the stars." The prelate struck the ceremonial gong, signaling the end of the session. Delegates began rising from their seats, already chatting amongst themselves, as if humanity's fate were a minor footnote in their day. Vance stood motionless on the platform, watching them go. His comm link buzzed, a secure channel from Earth. He activated it, keeping his voice low. "Vance here." The voice on the other end was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Admiral, the Council's decision is unacceptable." "I know, Madam President," Vance said. "They're not even trying to hide their disdain anymore." A pause then, the words Head been waiting for. "Tell Project Shroud to proceed. Full authorization." Vance allowed himself a small, grim smile. Understood. As he turned to leave, Chancellor Droth caught his arm. The Vorax's compound eyes glittered with amusement. "Cheer up, Admiral. At least now your people won't embarrass themselves trying to play with the grown-ups." Vance met his gaze. "Funny thing about humans, Chancellor. We've always been at our most dangerous when people assume we're harmless." Droth blinked, his mandibles clicking uncertainly, but Vance was already walking away, the chamber's laughter fading behind him. The asteroid field beyond Mars was supposed to be empty, dead rocks drifting in silence. That is what the Federation observers believed. That is what their long-range scans confirmed. Captain Liana Cross floated weightless in the observation blister of the USN Vale, her reflection a ghost in the reinforced glass. Behind her, the ship's interior hummed with quiet energy, not the roaring reactors of Federation vessels, but something deeper, something hungry. "Status?" she asked, not turning. "Project Shroud is green across the board," came the reply. Dr. Marcus Rook's voice crackled through her earpiece, the scientist's usual dry wit replaced by tight focus. "Final diagnostics complete. The Atlantica and Wrath report the same. We're ready." Cross exhaled. 3 years. 3 years of secret construction in the dark, of stolen materials funneled through black sites, of engineers working in shifts so deep underground they forgot what sunlight looked like. All while the Federation laughed at humanity's primitive's fleet. She pushed off the glass, drifting toward the blister's exit. "Tell me they're still not looking." Rook's chuckle was grim. "Not a peep. Their last scan was 12 hours ago. Standard patrol pattern. They think we're hiding in our gravity well, licking our wounds." The corridor outside was narrow, the walls lined with conduits that pulsed faintly blue. Not the garish neon of alien tech, but something subtler, more dangerous. Crew members moved past her with quiet efficiency, their footsteps magnetized to the deck. None of the usual chatter, they knew what was coming. The bridge doors hissed open. The crew snapped to attention, but Cross waved them down. "At ease, we're not formal today." The main display showed Sol in real. Time, Earth, a blue marble, the moon, a silent sentinel, and between them, the blockade. 37 Zepyrian warships, their golden hulls gleaming in the sunlight like a noose. "Admiral Vance's last transmission?" Cross asked. Her comm officer, Lieutenant Cho, didn't look up from his console. "Encrypted burst 12 minutes ago. The Federation Council voted. They're revoking our shipbuilding rights effective immediately. Zepyrian enforcement fleet is en route to decommission our orbital docks." A murmur ran through the bridge. Cross didn't react. She'd expected this. "Time, 70. 2 minutes until their reinforcements arrive," Cho said. Cross tapped her fingers against her thigh. 72 minutes enough time. Open a channel to the Atlantica and Wrath. The display split. Captain Rykov of the Atlantica looked like he hadn't slept in days. His beard ragged, his eyes sharp. Captain Hale of the Wrath was calmer, her fingers steepled, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her. "We go," Cross said. "No fanfare, no speech." Rykov grinned. "About damn time." Hale nodded. "Orders." Cross turned back to the display. The Zepyrian blockade hung there, arrogant, unmoving. "Vance gave us one directive," she said. "Prove them wrong." A pause, then Hale's lips curled, with pleasure. The channel closed. Cross turned to her crew. sound general quarters, power up the gravitic lances, and rook. The scientist's voice came through crisp. Yes, Captain. Let's show them why we called it Project Shroud. Deep in the ship's belly, something awakened. The Veil's hull shimmered, its black surface drinking in light. Not just hiding, not just cloaking, erasing on the bridge. The crew braced. Cross didn't. She stood straight, watching the display as the Veil systems cycled up. All ships report ready, Cho said. Cross took a breath. Decloak sequence in 5. The countdown ticked in her head. 5, 4, 3, 2. The stars outside twisted. The Veil rippled into existence like a nightmare-given form. A blade of black steel 7 kilometers long, its flanks studded with railgun ports, its prow split by the yawning mouth of a gravitic lance, and beside it, the Atlantica and Wrath emerged in unison, their hulls just as dark, just as hungry. Rook's voice was a whisper in her ear. Let's see them call us obsolete now. Cross smiled. Open a channel to the blockade. The Zephyrian fleet was already scrambling, their golden ships wheeling in panic, their comms flooding with shouts. She let them scream for a moment, then she spoke. You wanted to see human technology? Her fingers hovered over the firing controls. Here it is. The Veil's gravitic lance flared to life, the stars bent, and the first shot tore through the Zephyrian flagship like it was made of paper. Lieutenant Jake Ramirez tightened his grip on the control yoke of his USN Defiance fighter as the Zephyrian blockade came into view. The golden warships formed a perfect ring around Earth, their sleek hulls bristling with plasma cannons that glowed ominously in the void. His HUD flickered with threat indicators, dozens of capital ships, each one capable of glassing a city with a single volley. Command. This is Ramirez, he said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. Confirming visual on the blockade. They've got us locked down tight. A crackle of static, then the calm voice of Admiral Vance came through. Copy that. Lieutenant, hold position. Do not engage. Ramirez exhaled slowly. Understood, but sir, they're not just here to scare us, are they? A pause, then Vance's reply, quieter this time. No, they're here to make sure we never fly again. Inside the cockpit, Ramirez's fingers twitched over the weapons console. His fighter was a relic compared to the Zephyrian interceptors. No energy shields, no plasma lances, just old-fashioned tungsten slugs and a pilot dumb enough to fly them. A new voice cut into the comms, deep, smug, dripping with condescension. Human vessels, this is Fleet Marshal Korath of the Zephyrian Armada. You are in violation of Galactic Federation Directive. Power down your engines and prepare for boarding. Ramirez's jaw clenched. Like hell we will, he muttered, switching to a private channel. Defiance Squadron, sound off. One by one, the voices of his wingmates responded. Echo, Faye, standing by. Raven Faye, locked and loaded. Ghost Faye, ready to dance. Ramirez smirked, at least he wasn't alone. On the main screen, Korath's flagship, the Celestial Wrath, loomed larger than the others, its golden hull adorned with the sigils of 100 conquered worlds. The Zephyrian's face appeared on the comms, sharp, angular, with violet eyes that gleamed with amusement. Admiral Vance, Korath said, his voice smooth. I see your pitiful fleet has mustered all of 12 fighters. How adorable. Vance's response was ice. We don't need numbers when we've got resolve. Korath laughed. Resolve, your species still uses metal for starships. Your weapons are centuries behind Federation standards. You are children playing with sticks. Ramirez's knuckles whitened. Korath continued, his tone shifting to something almost pitying. Surrender your shipyards. Relinquish your warships. The Federation will be merciful. Refuse. He gestured, and the Celestial Wrath's main cannon hummed to life, its core glowing crimson. And we will reduce your cities to glass. Silence hung over the comms. Then from Earth's orbital command, Vance's voice came through, calm but firm. You don't know what you're doing, Korath. The Zephyrian smirk widened. Oh, I do. I'm giving you one last chance to kneel. Ramirez's fighter shuddered as the celestial wrath's targeting systems locked onto Earth. His HUD flashed warnings, primary cannons charging, yield sufficient to level a continent. Defiance Squadron, Ramirez said, his voice low. Weapons hot, on my mark. Belay that, Lieutenant. Vance's voice cut in. Hold your fire. Ramirez blinked, sir. A pause. Then Vance's voice quieter, almost amused. Trust me. Korath's face twisted in confusion. What are you? And then the stars rippled. At first, Ramirez thought it was a sensor glitch. Then, directly in front of the celestial wrath, space itself seemed to tear, and something monstrous emerged. A ship, but not like any ship Ramirez had ever seen. Black, sleek, silent. It was as if the void had taken shape, a dagger of pure darkness, its hull drinking in the light. No engines flared, no shields shimmered. It just hung there, ominous and still. Korath's voice crackled over the comms, his smugness gone. What is that? A new voice answered, female, calm, and utterly terrifying. Fleet Marshal Korath, said Captain Liana Cross from the bridge of the US and Vale. You wanted to see human technology? A pause. Then, here it is. The Vale's gravitic lance fired. The celestial wrath's shields didn't even slow it down. The bridge of the US and Vale hummed with restrained energy. Captain Liana Cross stood at the center, her fingers hovering over the tactical display. The holographic projection showed the Zephyrian blockade in perfect detail. Dozens of golden-hulled warships, forming an impenetrable ring around Earth. Their plasma cannons glowed with barely contained power, a silent threat hanging over the blue planet below. All systems ready, Captain, Commander Hale reported from the engineering station. His voice was steady, but his knuckles were white where they gripped the console. Shroud field at 100%, railguns charged, gravitic lance primed. Cross didn't blink. Her eyes stayed locked on the flagship of the blockade. The Zed's Imperious, a monstrous vessel twice the size of the Vale, its hull gleaming with the arrogance of a species that had never known defeat. Fleet Marshal Korath's face filled the comm screen. His four eyes narrowed in amusement as he addressed Earth's leaders. Final warning, Korath said, his voice dripping with condescension. Surrender your shipyards, or we will reduce your cities to glass. You have 1 hour. The channel cut. The bridge was silent. Cross exhaled. Time to remind them why you never corner a human. She tapped the comm. All hands, battle stations, prepare to decloak. The Vale had been lurking at the edge of the blockade for hours. Unseen, its blackened hull absorbing every scan, every sensor sweep. The Zephyrians had laughed at human stealth tech, called it primitive camouflage. They hadn't accounted for Project Shroud. Decloak sequence initiated, announced Lieutenant Chen. The Vale shuddered as its systems flared to life. One moment, there was empty space in front of the Imperious. The next, the human dreadnought rippled into existence, its angular frame blotting out the stars. On the bridge of the Imperious, alarms screamed. Korath's smug expression shattered into disbelief. What? How? Cross didn't give him time to finish. Target their primary reactor, fire gravitic lance. The Vale's main weapon discharged with a soundless roar. A beam of distorted space-time lanced across the void, striking the Imperious dead center. Zephyrian shields flared, then buckled, their vaunted energy dispersion systems overloading in seconds. The beam punched clean through the flagship's hull, tearing through decks like they were parchment. Secondary explosions rippled down the Imperious's spine. Korath staggered as his ship listed violently to port. Return fire, all batteries, target that. Too slow, Cross muttered. The Vale's railgun batteries roared to life. A storm of hypervelocity rounds shredded the Imperious's weapon arrays before they could charge. Golden plating vaporized under the onslaught. Korath's voice crackled over the comm, raw with panic. All ships, engage, destroy that. Cut the channel, Cross ordered. She leaned forward, eyes locked on the crumbling flagship. Open a fleet. Wide broadcast. The comm officer nodded. Live in 321. Cross's voice cut across every Zephyrian frequency, cold and clear. You wanted to see human technology, here it is. The Veil's engines flared. It surged forward, closing the distance to the Imperius in seconds. At point-blank range, the Dreadnought's ventral cannons unleashed a final salvo. The flagship's bridge vanished in a fireball. Across the blockade, Zephyrian ships scrambled to react. Fighters launched in disorganized swarms. Cruisers turned their guns toward the Veil, but their targeting systems couldn't lock on. The Dreadnought's shroud field flickered back to life, bending light and sensors around it. Evasive pattern Delta, Cross ordered. The Veil banked hard, dodging a volley of plasma fire. Chen, status on the Atlantica and Wrath? Both report ready, Captain, awaiting your signal. Cross allowed herself a grim smile. Tell them to decloak. Let's give the Zephyrians a proper welcome. The Imperius was dead in space. Its hull cracked open like an egg. Korath clung to a shattered console, his once pristine uniform scorched. He stared at the view screen, where the Veil danced through his fleet's fire like a ghost. Impossible, he whispered. Then space rippled again, and two more human dreadnoughts emerged from nothingness. The USN Atlantica and USN Wrath materialized on either flank of the blockade, their railguns already spinning up. The Zephyrian fleet hesitated. For the first time in their history, they faced an enemy they couldn't overpower, and the humans weren't done yet. All ships, Cross transmitted, her voice ringing across the battlefield. This is Captain Cross of the USN Veil. You have 1 minute to stand down after that. She paused. We stop holding back, silence. Then, one by one, the Zephyrian ships powered down their weapons. Korath's final transmission was a broken whisper. What are you? Cross didn't answer. She just watched as the blockade fell apart. Behind her, Commander Hale let out a breath. Think they'll finally take us seriously now? Cross didn't smile. No, but they'll learn. The bridge of the USN Atlantica hummed with restrained energy as Captain Liana Cross watched the tactical display. The Zephyrian blockade still hung in space, their golden warships gleaming like arrogant sentinels. But now, the Veil had drawn first blood. The Zephyrian flagship's shields flickered and died under the relentless assault of the gravitic lance. All ships, decloak and engage, Cross ordered. Her voice steady. Space rippled. First came the USN Wrath, its blackened hull drinking in the light as it materialized off the port flank of the Zephyrian formation. Then, like a nightmare-given form, the USN Atlantica emerged directly above the blockade, its railgun batteries already cycling to full charge. On Earth's orbital command station, Admiral Elias Vance allowed himself a rare smile. The holographic display in front of him painted the battle in real time. Human ships, once mocked as obsolete, now tearing into the heart of the Federation's pride. Admiral, a comms officer called. We're receiving panic transmissions from the Zephyrian fleet. They're demanding to know where these ships came from. Vance leaned forward, tapping a command into the console. Open a channel to the Federation Council. Let them watch. Across the void, Chancellor Droth's scaled face twisted in disbelief as the feed from Earth's orbit flooded the high chamber. The Atlantica's railguns fired in unison, each slug striking with pinpoint precision. A Zephyrian cruiser detonated in a silent bloom of fire, its golden hull splitting apart like overripe fruit. Impossible, Droth hissed. Their technology was supposed to be primitive. High prelate Vexis mandibles clenched. They tricked us. On the bridge of the Veil, Cross watched as the Wrath carved through another cruiser. Lieutenant Ramirez, status on the fighter wings. Ramirez's voice crackled over the comms, exhilaration bleeding through. Fighters are clear and engaging, Captain. Zephyrian interceptors can't lock onto US. Their targeting systems don't recognize our signatures. Cross smirked. Good. Keep them blind. Aboard the USN Defiance, Lieutenant Jake Ramirez banked his fighter hard, dodging a spray of plasma fire. His HUD flickered as the Zeperian targeting system struggled to track him. They really didn't see this coming, did they? His wingman, Lieutenant Caravos, laughed over the comm. Guess they forgot to ask how we survived all our wars. Ramirez lined up a shot and squeezed the trigger. Twin railgun rounds punched through the cockpit of a Zeperian interceptor, sending it spinning into the void. Damn right. Back in the high chamber, Admiral Vance's voice cut through the stunned silence. You banned our ships, called them scrap. The holographic feed zoomed in on the Atlantica as it unleashed another volley, this time targeting the Zeperian command carrier. Turns out, we didn't need your approval. The command carrier's shields flared, then failed. The railgun slugs tore through its hull, venting atmosphere in a glittering cloud. Escape pods jettisoned in panic. Fleet Marshal Korath's face appeared on the main screen of the Veil. His golden armor scorched, his pride shattered. You deceived the Federation. Cross leaned forward, her gaze icy. No, you deceived yourselves. You assumed we were weak because we didn't flaunt our strength. She nodded to her tactical officer. Finish it. The Veil's gravitic lance fired again. Korath's flagship split down the middle, its reactors overloading in a cataclysmic explosion. On Earth, crowds gathered in streets and squares, watching the skies. The Zeperian blockade, once an unbreakable ring of oppression, now burned in orbit. The black dreadnoughts of humanity moved among the wreckage, untouched. In the high chamber, Chancellor Droth slowly rose from his seat. His voice, for once, held no mockery. Admiral Vance, what are your terms? Vance's reply was crisp. The blockade ends Earth's fleet stays, and next time, ask before you assume. Silence followed. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Federation had no words. And in the void above Earth, humanity's dreadnought stood unchallenged. Lieutenant Jake Ramirez's fingers danced across the controls of his fighter, the USN Defiance's engines screaming as he banked hard to port. A Zeperian plasma bolt seared past his cockpit, close enough to make his heat alarms blare. He grinned, teeth flashing in the dim light. That all you got, Goldies? The comm crackled. Ramirez quit showboating and covered the Atlantica's flank. Captain Cross's voice was sharp, but he could hear the smirk in it. Copy that. Cap, just warming up. He yanked the stick, his fighter spinning into a tight arc as he lined up on a Zeperian gunship. His targeting HUD flashed red. Say hello to Earth's hospitality. He squeezed the trigger. The railgun round punched clean through the alien ship's hull, sending debris spinning into the void. Around him, the battle raged. Human dreadnoughts, sleek and black as nightmares, tore through the Zeperian blockade like wolves in a herd of startled deer. The USN Wrath's main batteries fired in unison, a volley of gravitic lances reducing a cruiser to molten slag. On the bridge of the Veil, Cross watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Zeperian fleet was breaking. Their golden ships, so proud and untouchable mere minutes ago, now drifted in pieces. She tapped her comm. All ships push forward. Don't let them regroup. Fleet Marshal Korath's flagship, the Pride of Zentha, was listing badly. Its once gleaming hull scorched and ruptured. Cross turned to her weapons officer. Prep the boarding pods, paying Korath a visit. The officer hesitated. Captain, protocol says. Protocol says we finish what they started. She stood, adjusting her sidearm. Tell Ramirez to give me cover. Ramirez whooped as the order came through. Hell yeah, time to dance, Goldies. His fighter streaked ahead, weaving through enemy fire like it was nothing. Behind him, the Veil's boarding pods launched, streaking toward the crippled flagship. Korath staggered as another impact rocked the Pride of Zentha. His bridge crew scrambled, their mandibles clicking in panic. Report, he snarled. Shields are gone, Marshal. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. The alarm screamed. A new voice cut through the chaos. Marshal Korath, he turned. Captain Cross stood in the ruined doorway of his bridge, her armor scuffed but unbroken, her sidearm leveled at his chest. Behind her, human marines fanned out. Their rifles trained on his crew. Korath's frills flattened in shock. "How did you?" "Walked," Cross said. She stepped forward, her boots crunching over broken glass. "You really thought metal hulls were our weakness?" She gestured to the viewport, where the last of his fleet burned. "Turns out, we just needed you to get close enough." Korath's claws twitched toward his sidearm. Cross's shot took him in the shoulder before he could blink. He collapsed, hissing in pain. She crouched beside him. "You banned our ships, called us primitive." Her voice was quiet, deadly, "But you never asked how we won all our wars." Outside, the US and Atlantica's railguns fired one last time. The final Zeperian cruiser exploded in a silent bloom of fire. Ramirez's voice crackled over the comm. "Cap, we're clear. Blockades toast." Cross straightened, holstering her weapon. "Tell Earth Command we're done here." She looked down at Korath, bleeding at her feet. "And tell the Federation they've got a choice to make." On Earth, Admiral Vance watched the feed from the Veil's boarding action, his grin sharp. The Galactic High Chamber's emergency channel was lighting up with panicked transmissions. He muted them. "Send the Council my regards," he said to his aide. "And remind them we're just getting started." The aide nodded. Already typing. Around them, Earth's orbital defenses hummed to life, their targeting systems locking onto the retreating Zeperian stragglers. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy held its breath. The chamber was silent, not the quiet of contemplation, but the stunned stillness of predators realizing they had become prey. Admiral Elias Vance stood at the center of the Galactic High Chamber, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The holographic sigils of the Federation's dominant species flickered around him, except for Earth's. Ours was dark. For now, High Prelate Vexis' 4 hands trembled where they gripped the edge of his podium. His golden carapace, usually gleaming with arrogance, looked dull under the chamber's lights. Chancellor Droth, the Vorak technocrat who had sneered at human primitive alloys, now hunched in his seat, his segmented fingers tapping a nervous rhythm against his chest. Vance didn't smile. He didn't need to. The wreckage of the Zeperian blockade still glowed in Earth's orbit, a graveyard of golden hulls torn apart by black human dreadnoughts. "You were saying something about obsolete technology?" Vance said, his voice calm. Too calm, Droth's vocal slits flared. This is an act of war." Vance tilted his head. "No, the blockade was the act of war. What followed was conversation." He reached into his coat and pulled out a data crystal, its surface etched with the emblem of the United Earth Stellar Navy. He tossed it onto the central podium. It clattered, the sound echoing through the silent chamber. Vexis' mandibles twitched. "What is this, terms?" Vance said. "Earth's fleet remains. Your blockades end, and from now on you ask before you assume." A murmur rippled through the gathered delegates. The Sierra Leone ambassador, their floating orbs pulsing with agitation, drifted forward. "You expect us to simply accept this, after we've what?" Vance interrupted. "Defended ourselves, proved your arrogance wrong." He took a step forward, and for the first time, the chamber's lighting caught the scars along his jaw, old wounds from a war humanity had fought long before the stars knew our name. "You banned our ships, called them scrap, and yet, it took 3 of them to dismantle your entire blockade in under an hour." Droth's frills flushed crimson. "Your cloaking technology was developed because you left us no choice," Vance said. "You pushed us into the dark. We learned to thrive there." The chamber's main doors hissed open. Captain Liana Cross strode in, her black uniform still streaked with carbon scoring from the battle. She carried no weapon, but the way the Zeperian guards flinched at her approach said enough. She stopped beside Vance, her gaze sweeping the room. Fleet Marshal Korath wasn't with her. Vex's voice was a whisper. "Where is Aliv?" Cross said, barely. She smiled, just a flicker. Humans don't execute prisoners were not barbarians. The sarcasm dripped like blood. Vance tapped the data crystal. The terms are non-negotiable. Earth's sovereignty is absolute. Our fleet answers to no one but Earth Command. And if any of you ever try to dictate what we can or cannot build again, he paused. Well, you've seen what happens. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, one by one, the holographic sigils of the Federation's species dimmed. All except Earth's. It flared to life, a brilliant blue against the shadows, its light casting hard lines across Vance's face. Chancellor Droth was the first to stand. His legs trembled, but he managed a stiff nod. The Vorak conclave accepts. Vex's mandibles clicked once, twice. Then, with a sound like a sigh, he bowed his head. Cross leaned toward Vance, her voice low. Think they'll keep their word. Vance watched the sigils flicker, the balance of power shifting in real time. For now. He turned, his coat sweeping behind him as he walked toward the exit. But if they don't, behind him, Earth's sigil burned brighter than ever. And for the first time in galactic history, the overlords feared the humans.